If a regular worker tried to match Elon Musk's fortune, they'd need to grind for roughly 9 million years, about 35 times longer than humans have existed. And while you've been listening to this single sentence, Elon probably made another 200 grand, probably while checking emails. But here's the part that fries the brain. Elon isn't even close to being the richest human who ever lived. He's not the final boss. He's barely level 1 on history's money leaderboard. Let's dig up the ghosts of true wealth, people who made modern billionaires look like unpaid interns with fancy hobbies. Late 1980s Colombia. In a country full of creativity, music, and potential, one man decided to turn opportunity into infamy. Pablo Escobar. He didn't build an industry. He hijacked one and flooded it with violence. At his peak, he was pulling in roughly $500 million a week, buying loyalty, chaos, and silence in equal measure. That's close to $90 billion today, but none of it came from innovation, just intimidation and fear. While the nation pushed forward, Escobar buried his fortune in barns, walls, and jungle pits. He spent thousands each week on rubber bands to hold it all together, lost billions to mold, rats, and humidity, and once burned $2 million just to stay warm. No vision, no legacy, just paranoia with a pulse. If money could rot, his already did. If cash had a king, his throne smelled like gasoline and guilt. 1945. World War II ends. The world rebuilds. But in the ruins stands one man who already owns it all, Joseph Stalin. He had no mansion, no portfolio, no brand deals, just control so absolute it replaced currency. His wardrobe screamed middle manager, but his reach extended across an economy worth $12 trillion today. In Stalin's USSR, even a joke could be a death sentence. When he collapsed from a stroke, nobody dared to call a doctor for 12 hours, too terrified he'd wake up and punish them for acting without orders. Technically broke. Realistically, the richest control freak who ever lived. 1909, Vienna. A failed artist sells postcards in bitterness, Adolf Hitler. Rejected from art school, broke, and angry, he eventually finds his true medium, propaganda. After a botched coup lands him in prison, he writes Mein Kampf, a rant that initially sells like spoiled milk. But when Germany collapses, his words become currency. He forces the state to buy millions of copies, declares himself tax-exempt, and collects royalties on his face and speeches. Add in stolen art, gold, and slave labor from across Europe, worth over $3.5 trillion today, and you get one of the darkest fortunes ever assembled. Proof that evil can monetize faster than genius. 1914 Detroit. While Europe burns, Henry Ford engineers order out of chaos. He doubles wages, shortens the work week, and perfects the assembly line. The Model T rolls out every 90 minutes. Cars become affordable, cities expand, and the suburbs are born. At his peak, about $250 billion today, Ford didn't just sell cars. He sold a lifestyle. His true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in how he rewired society itself, creating the first real middle class. The Gilded Age. No taxes, no rules, just smoke, steel, and unfiltered ego. Vanderbilt ruled the rails. Carnegie built America's bones out of steel and gilt, and John D. Rockefeller? He was capitalism. Standard Oil controlled 90% of U.S. refining, until the Supreme Court tried to break it. Instead, they multiplied it. The punishment made him richer. His new company soared, and by 1913, his fortune reached about $600 billion in today's terms. The first man in history so rich, the law had to invent the word monopoly. Modern day. Jeff Bezos takes Rockefeller's blueprint and swaps oil for data. Prime replaces pipelines. Servers replace smokestacks. At his peak, around $220 billion, he proves that empires now run on algorithms, not engines. He didn't just master logistics, he turned convenience itself into a trillion-dollar addiction. 17th century Europe. Before electricity, before phones, Mayor Amschel Rothschild builds the first global banking web. He sends 5 sons to 5 financial capitals: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, Frankfurt, and together they run the 18th century like a spreadsheet. They fund wars, rebuild nations, and quietly become the lenders of last resort to kings and countries alike. Their greatest asset wasn't gold, it was information. Nathan Rothschild alone peaked near $25 billion, but their influence stretched farther than any currency ever could. 1500s Germany. Jacob Fugger, the original financial shark, loans money to kings, popes, and emperors. And he doesn't just lend, he buys leverage. In 1519, he bankrolls Emperor Charles V's coronation for what would now equal hundreds of millions. When the emperor drags his feet on repayment, Fugger sends a polite reminder, "Without me, there is no crown." He funds wars, finances cathedrals, and still builds Europe's first social housing complex, occupied to this day for a symbolic coin a year. His estimated net worth? $450 billion, about 2% of Europe's entire GDP. He didn't just loan to royalty, he created it. 1300s, West Africa. Mansa Musa, emperor of Mali, decides to go on a pilgrimage and accidentally crashes the global economy. He marches across the desert with 60,000 people and literal tons of gold. He gives away so much wealth that cities inflate, collapse, and recover only after he buys everything back. He controlled nearly half the world's gold supply, worth about $600 billion today, and redefined what generosity could destroy. The man turned charity into chaos and left cartographers drawing him covered in gold for centuries. 12th century Mongolia. Genghis Khan ruled 20% of the planet's landmass. That's tens of trillions in today's value. But he didn't hoard treasure, he distributed it. He ate with his soldiers, slept in tents, and died asking for no monument. His currency wasn't money, it was loyalty and fear. If dominance counts as wealth, Genghis was the richest man who ever drew breath. Year 1, Rome. Augustus Caesar defeats Mark Antony and Cleopatra, absorbs Egypt, and seizes control of 20% of Rome's economy, roughly $6 trillion in today's equivalent. He kills rivals, confiscates their estates, and dies a literal god. Cleopatra nearly matched him. Fluent in 12 languages, commanding ports and diplomacy, if one naval battle had gone differently, she would have owned the world's supply chain instead of losing it. Ancient era. King Solomon, the mythic magnate, collects 666 talents of gold each year, about $2.5 trillion now. 700 wives, endless palaces, 0 receipts. The legend is massive, the math is imaginary. By the time you're that far back, net worth becomes mythology. So who really wins? If wealth means control, crown Stalin, Caesar, or Genghis. If it's cash, Escobar still reigns. If it's market share, Rockefeller holds the belt. If it's influence, the Rothschilds owned the map. If it's impact, Ford rewired civilization. But if wealth means real, usable, personal capital in the largest economy the world's ever built, then yes, it's still Elon Musk, peaking near $420 billion. And like every richest man before him, he'll lose that crown too. The difference now? When the next one rises, so will the rest of us.